GS method to better golf. In the first section of our video, we want to introduce you to a man who has become a legend among his fellow professionals. But despite amassing a tremendous tournament record and becoming the only man alive to shoot in the 50s 3 times, he still remains virtually unknown. To help us understand how this could happen, we invite you to watch along and learn about the man they call Pipeline, Moe Norman.
And why isn't Moe in there? Why? There's so many deserving people to get into the Hall of Fame, and already there are undeserving people in there, but Moe is got to be at the head of that group of people who are deserving, and it's just a shame that he's not in there.
It's well known throughout the world. You know, he's famous for many things, but the major one is his ball striking ability.
They're missing the boat on Moe. The whole golfing community is missing the boat on Moe.
He picked me up and shook me by my feet to see how much money I had in my pockets, and the people just thought that was fantastic.
To help us understand more about Moe Norman, we went to Mr. Lorne Rubinstein. Lorne is Canada's leading golf writer and the author of 3 widely recognized golf books. His work has appeared in golf magazines around the world.
Moe Norman is one of the most interesting and intriguing figures in the world of golf. I mean, I don't know if you can find anybody else in the game anywhere about whom there are more stories told about. Wherever you go in the world, there's something that somebody knows about Moe. But the problem is not all the stories are true. You know, I travel, let's say, down to a tournament on the PGA Tour, and somebody's telling me about the time Moe walked off the golf course at the Masters. Well, it's not true. There are reasons for the kinds of things that Moe did. And Moe has often gotten in his own way. There's no question about it. He's caused some of his own problems, but a lot of it is also that people don't understand anything about Moe. They don't look at the person. They look at his actions. They look at his behaviors. They see a fellow who speaks quickly, who repeats himself all the time. They see a fellow who swings the golf club in a way that they just can't understand, even though fundamentally, as Tom Watson and Trevino and other people have said, is probably one of the soundest golf swings going. But they just look at Moe without understanding the person. He walks so fast on the golf course, and sometimes because he's insecure, he'll say things that put people off. But what you have to do, I think, with Moe Norman is you have to look at the world as much as you can from his point of view. You have to try to get to understand him. You have to try to spend time with him. You know, I'm amazed. I walk around golf tournaments, and people aren't out there watching Moe. They don't want to spend the time with Moe. Out at the Ontario PGA Seniors last year in 1992, my wife and I went out for a walk to watch him, and here's one of the greatest ball strikers in the history of the game, and nobody is out there watching him. So how can we say that we don't understand Moe Norman, or he won't let us understand him when we don't even make the attempt? This guy has done so much in golf, played in such a different way, and is now becoming a model for a lot of people who are studying the golf swing. But the thing that's interesting to me about Moe, in addition to his ability to hit the golf ball purely and accurately and to stripe it every time, is that he's a compelling figure in human psychology. To try and understand him is really a goal, I suppose, in some ways of mine, and I think of more people nowadays. When I was a kid, I grew up around the de Havilland golf course and driving range up in North Toronto. And night after night, I was 12 or 13 years old, I'd go over to de Havilland and I'd see Moe, this strange-looking guy, whacking golf balls out into the middle of the night, and every one dead straight, and people would gradually gather around him as if he were a Pied Piper of golf. And I was a kid, and I was fascinated by him. And fortunately for me, later on, when I became a golf writer and got more involved in the game, I continued to watch Moe and to see his development. And now, years later, here's Moe Norman doing clinics around the world, showing people what he's all about. Finally, we're seeing a calmer Moe, a friendlier Moe, a Moe who's more open to us. But still, we have to take the time to get to know him. We can be sure of one thing. Moe isn't going to come to us because he is still insecure, still a very vulnerable human being. We've got to make the time to get to know him. And if we do, I can guarantee anybody who makes the effort, you'll be rewarded.
Over the years, Moe has gained quite a reputation on the golf course. Mark spoke with Gary Slatter on some of his more interesting experiences with Moe.
Gary, we've all read the stories about Moe Norman. We've seen him in the magazines, we've seen him in Golf Digest. He's well publicized the exploits that Moe's done. Finally, we get a chance to come right to the source. We're going to ask you today exactly what happened, starting with the 1973 Canadian Open. Gary, tell us what really happened.
Well, I had qualified for the Canadian Open at Cherry Hill in Fort Erie, and I was on the putting green getting tensed up, ready to go to the first tee, and Arnold Palmer was there, and Moe, and a lot of other players, of course. And so Moe walked over and said, "Are you going to Winnipeg next week?" I said, "No, I'm going back to work." He said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I don't have enough money to play. I have to work." He said, "You don't have enough money?" And he pulled a roll of money out and threw it on the putting green and walked away because he was on the tee. So I looked over at this big roll of money, and my parents were watching across the ropes. Anyway, Arnold Palmer walked over and started to count it. And I think it was over $3,000 in $100 bills.
He just threw it on the ground?
Oh, he just threw it and he said, "You have no excuse. No excuse. There's money. There's money to go and play."
And he walked away.
He walked away, and I understand Arnold Palmer picked up the money because Moe didn't get it until the next day. Like he just walked away from it.
So Moe was sincere when he did this. He truly wanted you to have the money.
I think he was being sincere, and I've often wondered if I'd picked up the money, what would have happened. But I'd probably just owe Moe $3,000.
We got that. Gary, we've all heard about the legendary Moe Norman and how well he can strike a golf ball. But in all fairness to everyone, what we want to do today is discuss some of the other things Moe has done on the golf course. For example, in 1971, there's a story that happened to you. Quebec Open. Take us through it and tell us exactly what happened on that day.
The day before, we were playing the last round of the Quebec Open. And on around, Moe and I happened to be in the last group. Moe was leading the tournament at the time. I had already dropped back to about 10th. And on the 14th or 15th hole at Summerley, a very narrow hole, Moe hit it right down the middle of the fairway, like he always did then. And I said, "That's okay, Moe." He says, "Okay?" He said, "If you could hit it like that, you'd have lots of money in your pockets." I said, "I've got enough money in my pockets, Moe." And with that, he actually picked me up, and I was less then, of course. He picked me up and shook me by my feet to see how much money I had in my pockets. And the people just thought that was fantastic, all the spectators there. Anyway, I didn't have enough money, and
Moe just literally picked you up.
he actually picked me up and shook me. And then on the 18th hole, about a half hour later, great par 4, I think it's a par 5 normally, but Moe and I both hit our second shots on the green, and no clap or anything. And at the time, Moe was leading the tournament still, so when we got up to the green, Moe said to the spectators, "Has everyone hit this green in 2?" And the marshal said, "You're the first 2. So Moe said, "Well, clap then. That was 2 good shots, clap." And he got very concerned that nobody had clapped for us. And he proceeded to 4-putt as he mumbled about it, and came second in the tournament.
Well, the story, as I've heard the story, as it's come down through the years, is we've always wondered if you might think that Moe 4-putted on purpose. You were there. What do you think happened?
Yeah, I think it was just, it would be careless for anyone else. But his mind was occupied that nobody had clapped. He was the best hitter in the game, and nobody appreciated it.
Yeah.
So he 4-putted in, I think his name was Payne, Bob Payne, an American, won the tournament. And that's what the fans sort of wanted, Moe would think. But he was the best player at the time. He just...
And the story goes on, as we were relating, that even the next day, the press the day before were getting on Moe about 4-putting, and then the next, is it the next day?
Yeah, the very next day we were playing at Richelieu Valley for the Canadian Open practice round. And on the 10th hole, par 3, about 250 yards from where the tees were, right at the very back. Now, as we got to the 10th tee, the press were all over the place in there. "Moe, you're 4-putting today, Moe. How are you going today, Moe? Any 4-putt yet?" And Moe stepped up with his driver and hit the ball. And just before it landed right in front of the pin, he turned around and he says, "I'm not putting today." And he actually made a hole-in-one.
Turned around to the press.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe it.
Moe, when did you start to realize that you may be one of the best, if not the best, ball strikers ever? Do you remember a date or a time?
Yeah, back when I was about 24 years old, 25. That I knew I had the move of the purity of technique, and now I've had it ever since. No, I've never hit it real bad in my life.
You never really had
Not since I've been 19, no.
So what went wrong with your game when it went wrong?
Just the odd bad shot, but never anything real deep badly.
And didn't last too long?
No. No, never even lasted a week.
Well, how would you explain that? We all get into ruts and they last for a long time. Why do you think you never did for any length of time?
Oh, a few reasons, but big reason is I've had the same move. I use the same muscles all the time. Every day of my life, I got the same pre-shot routine in my mind.
Every time?
On every shot, I got the same feeling.
1963, you're one shot off going into the last round of the Canadian Open. By your own admission, even since you've been young, you've been very, very shy. Do you think that had anything to do with the 6-3 putts last
Oh
day?
yes, oh yes. It's had a lot to do with my life, period.
What's going through your head last round?
Trying too hard, trying to please people instead of myself.
On the putting green or through the whole round?
No, just on the putting green. Oh, not hitting the ball, no. I was never shy there.
How many fairways that day?
Everyone. Never, wasn't in the rough.
Every fairway?
I wasn't in the rough, no.
17 greens, 6-3 putts. You know, I've read all the same articles most people have, and it said about how shy you were when you were young, and you'd win the tournament and then go hide so you didn't have to make a presentation. Any that run through your head that day?
Oh yes. If I'd have won the Canadian Open, I wouldn't have showed up.
To make the speech or
Yeah.
If you were going to change anything, Mo, okay, since the day, let's say you were 16 years old, if you were going to change anything, what would you go about changing?
I would have got smarter quicker.
It seems like your life has been dedicated to only seeing golf balls go straight.
Oh yeah, otherwise I'd quit. And I've done it for 40 years.
Nothing but.
And no hook or slice, just straight as you can draw a line. And I'm still doing it. In fact, I'm doing it better now than I ever did.
Yeah, I know.
With less effort.
Smarter, not harder?
Yeah. I'm thinking about it more now. Before I just would have got up and did it. Now, my mind's ready, telling my muscles what to do. And they're doing it. And the ball goes dead straight every time.
To this date, Moe Norman has not yet been selected to the Canadian Golf Hall of Fame. Recently, Bob Week, editor of Score magazine, spoke to Mark about this oversight.
Bob, let's turn right to your article on Moe's tournament victories. We have here the Canadian Senior Tour PGA Championship 7 times in 8 years. He's won 2 CPGA Championships, 3 Alberta Opens, 2 Saskatchewan Opens, 3 Manitoba Opens, 2 Ontario Opens, and a Quebec Open. At last count, Norman holds 33 course records. And we have here that he also won the 1955 Canadian Amateur Championship. In your article, we stated that Moe is not in the Hall of Fame. We've gone over his playing record. Obviously, he's good enough as a player to be in there. Why isn't Moe in the Hall of Fame?
Well, it's just a slap in Moe's face, and really it has to come down onto the RCGA and their whole selection process for how they pick people into the Hall of Fame. And it's really sad, but it's also another part, as we were talking about the controversies that follow Moe around and things, but so many people overlook that tournament record and those tournaments that you've just named. There's some tremendous victories in there. And not to mention, of course, he had an outstanding amateur record. But people overlook that. They look at him maybe as a little bit quirky, as a little bit different, maybe because of his personality. And they don't take into account how great a player he was, not just how great a ball striker, but how great a player he is, a tournament player. He's won all these tournaments. And if you gave that same list of victories and put it beside a player, say like Dan Halderson or Dave Barr, who have records not quite that good, but those kind of people would be shoo-ins for the Hall of Fame. And why isn't Moe in there? Why? There's so many deserving people to get into the Hall of Fame, and already there are undeserving people in there, but Moe is got to be at the head of that group of people who are deserving, and it's just a shame that he's not in there.
During the winter months, Moe can be found working on his game at the Royal Oak Golf Resort, the southern home of the CPGA. Here, Mark had a chance to listen to Moe explain some of his thoughts on the golf swing.
When you started formulating your swing, did you, like, little pieces click in here and there until you kind of got to the finished product?
Yeah, every day I went out, something just felt a little more uniformed and much easier to do, and I've stuck to that.
And you could remember what that was? Like,
oh yes.
Unlike some of us.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it's interesting that you and I have been together for so long, is that I can really now start seeing a pattern forming of the younger players all kind of going towards your motion. You know, you even look at Faldo, and Faldo's getting more and more as he getting less hip turn. And you've been talking about that. How long have you been talking about that?
Oh, yeah. 30, 40 years.
Is it really that long you thought that the hips didn't do much?
That's right, oh yes.
Do you remember how you ever came to that conclusion when everyone else around you was trying to move their hips more?
No, I never knew it, but it just happened. I did it, and but now I really know why.
Now you know why.
Oh yes.
But you kind of went against the grain there, huh?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Kind of feeling like been going against the grain the whole life?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
There's so little motion.
No strain, no struggle.
And you keep your back foot on the ground so long.
Yep.
So what did you teach these young guys, Mo? You had to do it.
Oh, so many things that I would teach different.
Physically or mentally? Or?
Oh, mentally. Oh, mentally. That's 90% of this game. Is between the ears.
How tough do you think the golf swing is?
Not very tough at all.
When you understand it, if
That's right. Yep. I'm the only golfer that's got 365 days a year swing, because mine is so simple. I hit my same positions every time.
How long do you think it took to make it simple?
Five hard years. 700 balls a day.
Okay.
Oh yes.
Best lesson you ever got?
Yep.
What's that? Remember one?
Sam Sneed at the Masters in '56.
Give you the best lesson you ever had?
Yes, sir.
How much time did you spend with him?
About 40 minutes. Yep.
Are you can tell us what it was?
Long iron shots is what he gave me a lesson on. Pretend you got a fairway wood in your hand. Try and be as smooth, but great extension. But think of the ball is further ahead of you than a shorter iron.
So you don't get so quick at it?
That's right. That's what things he was telling me.
So you enjoyed his company that day?
Oh, very
He was
good.
good to you?
Yes. I was just a little kid then, and only 24. And
Well, what do you think he took such a notice to you then? Because you were a nobody, he was a Sam Sneed, and
he was on the practice team, so was I, and he saw me standing there, and he saw what I was doing. He liked what I was doing. After we were done.
He came over to you?
Yes. I was too afraid to go to him. He said, son, you got the best pair of hands on a golf stick I've ever seen.
Is that what he said?
Don't ever change.
And he didn't know who you were from Adam at that time?
No, but you got a wonderful pair of hands.
What do you think he meant by that? Like the way your grip was, or the way your hands moved?
The way my hands work through the ball. That's what I asked him, what do you mean by that? And he says the way they go through the ball, same angle every time.
Gar Hamilton is one of Canada's top club professionals who grew up admiring Moe's unique style of golf.
You know, he's very kind to the younger players, and he was always very generous. So when he saw a young kid like me, 16 or 17, qualify for the Ontario Open, it would be a thrill of my life to play with the pros and so forth. He would be very friendly, and I just got to know him, and he's an Ontario boy, of course, and so am I. So you get to know him and play with him through the years. It's very generous to the younger players. Many times playing with him in golf tournaments and just marvel at the way he could strike the ball. He wasn't always so interested in scoring, getting it in the hole as quick as possible, which is the name of the game, unfortunately. But as far as striking the ball, I think we're pretty privileged to have he and George Knudson, two of the greatest of all time, that happen to be right from our area. So I always viewed it as a magnificent opportunity to watch him.
What about the Hall of Fame? Do you think this guy qualifies?
Well, if he doesn't, I don't know who else would in our country. I mean, we've had a lot of very fine players, but he has to stand out as certainly one of the most famous. And the championships he's won, maybe not as many as he could have won down south and in various spots, but the number of Canadian amateurs and Canadian PGAs and all the provincial titles that he's won, I'd have to say that I think that would qualify him.
We challenged Moe to hit some drivers for us. We gave him 20 shots to see how many times he could hit the fairway. We explained there will be no retakes. The best driving percentage on the Big Tour in 1992 was 82.6% by Doug Toole. Now let's see what Moe can do. Moe hit the fairway 18 out of 20 times, an average of 90%. To compare Moe to the best, we enlisted the expertise of the best amateur Canada has ever produced, a man who has seen all the best ball strikers in recent history. Nick Westlock knows golf. Let's listen in on Mark's interview with Nick Westlock.
Well, Nick, I think more than anyone else in Moe's past, you probably know more about him than anyone has. Along with that, you've probably seen more of the better players that have ever played the game. So now here we have a comparison. You're probably one of the few guys that we can talk to that can compare how you see Moe against some of the other best ball strikers in the world. Maybe we go back a little bit and we say we were talking about Ben Hogan. I guess that's the guy we got to compare him against. What's the samenesses? What's the differences between them, do you think?
Well, in Ben's prime and in Moe's prime, I would say that they compare very favorably on an even level. The sad part about it is that Moe never capitalized on the great talent he had, or he would have gained a tremendous reputation.
Well, I think that takes us back a little bit further, as Moe used to caddy for you, and you tell the story of Moe not being very well off.
No, that's true.
In his younger days, and not having the equipment, not having the benefit of some of the better teachers around, possibly, and or the money to get into some of the competitions that everyone else was allowed to get in.
That's true.
We've all heard stories about Ben Hogan, and we're here doing the video with Moe, comparing him to the best ball strikers in the world, not necessarily the best players in the world. Would you say that you would put Moe and Ben on a level, and
Yes.
then there's another level somewhere down below where most of the other guys can come in?
Yes, I would say for consistency and for pure ball striking, shaping the shot and putting the ball where they want to put it, in position. I've never seen two golfers so much alike as Moe and Ben Hogan. I had a chance to study them both. I've watched them. I've watched Ben at Augusta. I've followed him. And I say, after playing with Moe, which I do even now, twice a week, I don't know of any golfer that's as pure as he is. A good indication of the respect that he commands is the fact that every year at the Canadian Open, he gets on the practice tee with his street shoes and gets on all of the named pros just stop practicing and come over to watch him. They're flabbergasted by his great ball striking ability. If he's with the kind of guys he likes to play with, he can turn it on like a tap. And very rarely does he ever play in our games, which is usually twice a week, where he is. I can't remember him being in anything in the 70s. It's always in the 60s, 66, 67, 66, 65. He just loves to perform.
Yeah.
He's kind of a ham,
Kind of in his own way.
He's a real ham. Because if he hits a great shot in, and we're standing by, he's got two balls in his pocket. And we say, Moe, let's see you bring one in there from right to left. He can't wait to get the ball down on the grass to show you just how good he is.
Here's a guy his whole life who's done everything different than everybody says you're supposed to do it, had the gumption not to try to change,
Yep.
to do it
That's
his
right.
way and his way only, and knew that it would finally pay off. and sometimes I wonder if maybe we're all wrong and he's right.
Well, his result is always so good, you know, that he's convinced himself that there's, and after watching a lot of great players, that nobody's hitting it better than he is.
But you think maybe someday that the PGA of America might get smart and pay for Moe to go down for a couple weeks and study what he does? 'Cause after all, maybe this could be the best it's ever been done. Why wouldn't you want to study to see if this is the best? What's he doing right? I mean, look, if we know what he's doing right, maybe we can all copy it a little bit.
Mark, they're missing the boat on Moe. The whole golfing community is missing the boat on Moe. He's a phenomenon, as far as I'm concerned, having played with him from the very first time that he had golf clubs in his hands. I've seen this guy's game evolve in such a way that I think he is truly a great legend and a tremendous performer.
Now get ready to see a performance with a wedge that may never be duplicated. We again challenged Moe with a shot we considered fairly tough. The shot was downwind, 70 yards, over a pond to a pin cut on the short left-hand side of the green. Once more, Moe was told there would be no retakes or trick camera work. We think you'll agree this was truly an awesome display of ball striking.
Oh, Dean! Perfect! Jeez, look. Holy jeez. I wish he'd if he could slow down just a wee bit. My God. I don't believe it, Dean. This is awesome. You got it.
hope we were able to give you a clear understanding of a man who dared to be different, who, despite ridicule that would cause most of us to become a social recluse, was able to fulfill a lifelong dream of becoming the best ball striker of all time. And he did it his way. So goes the legend of Pipeline Moe Norman. The TGS Method to Better Golf presents Building and Maintaining Your Golf Swing. Let's meet the instructional staff that will guide you through this unique system of learning. Mark Evershed, your Director of Instruction, has taught his system around the world. Mark is also one of the few instructors that Moe Norman trusts with his golf swing. Joining Mark is tour professional Tommy Jackson, who along with Mark will explain and show you the positions to learn and the drills to practice. And finally, Bobby Wilson will tell some of his secrets that made him the all-time leading money winner in the National Long Driving Contest. Your instructional staff invites you to get off your chairs and follow along with them. Now, let's meet the innovator of the TGS method, Mark Evershed.
Hello and welcome to the instructional portion of your video. What makes this video different than all the rest is we're not going to stand here and tell you how easy it is to learn the golf swing, because it is not. However, it is possible if you're given the correct information and you're willing to work hard. What we're going to do today is break your video down into 6 segments. Segment number 1 is going to deal with learning and creating good habits. Number 2 is going to deal with positions to learn. Number 3 will be building a golf swing that allows us to incorporate the theories of Mr. Moe Norman. Number 4 is a practice drills that will allow you to maintain the swing that you've created. Number 5 is to show you how to take your swing from the practice tee to the golf course. And number 6, you're going to have to keep watching, and I'll tell you what it is a little later. Okay, join me on the practice tee. Let's get started.
In segment number 1, Mark explains how to learn and create good golfing habits.
Humans learn by repetition. We've been learning this way since the beginning of time, and I have no doubt that we will continue to learn in this fashion. The difference between golf and everything else we've ever learned is, everything else we started off slowly and gradually increase the speed later. But at golf, we seem to want to go to the practice tee and immediately go full speed. This makes no sense when you remember how you learned everything else in your life. Remember how you learned to walk and then run, how to print and then write. Well, why not golf? We want you to watch here how Tommy goes through each position slowly and accurately. By doing this, we can be guaranteed that the brain will remember the correct motion. In Chuck Hogan's terrific video, Nice Shot, he suggests that by doing anything 60 times a day for 21 straight days, we can make it a habit. I believe this is very accurate. Watch how Tommy goes through every position slowly and accurately. This is not different. This is how you learned everything in your life. Slowly at first, accurately. At a later date, it will then be the body's job to increase the speed of this motion.
In segment number 2, positions to learn.
Position number 1, the hold. Notice how we always start with the club up in front of us. This gives us the best visual view of how our hands are going to go on the golf club. Our hands control the club face. We simply must make sure that this is done correctly. Notice the left hand goes on first, and the right hand slides down to meet it. Tommy is using a 1-finger overlap grip. If we create good habits now, we won't make any room for the bad habits to slip in. From the back view, notice a repetition. Left hand first, right hand will slide down to meet the left. Fingers close around the golf club. Repetition. We keep repeating things, they become habits. If they become habits, we don't have to think about it. Eventually, I want to play this game without having to think. Left hand first, in the fingers, right hand slides down, fingers close, hands are on the golf club correctly. Right hand slides down, fingers close. From the top angle now. Club up in front of us, left hand on, right hand slides down, fingers close. The correct wrist conditions are left wrist is bent, right wrist is flat. Grip pressure should be, for full shots, light, for chipping and pitching, tight. That's the hold. Position number 2, the setup. From the correct setup, great shots are possible. Notice here how it's always the club face, then the feet setting up comfortable to the club face. It's always the same sequence of events. Club face, then the feet comfortable to the club face. You create good habits, the bad habits will not set in. From the back view, take a look at Tommy's posture. I'm saying by doing our procedure, position 1 to 2, that you would create good posture. It's not something I want to have to think about. It's something I want to build in, which I do through creating good habits. From the front, notice it's a club face, then the feet comfortable to the club face, not comfortable to the target, comfortable to the club face. Club face is aimed at the target, feet set up comfortable to the club face. Ball position. I've never seen a 10-year-old kid in my life ever have bad ball position. It's an optical illusion that that ball is moving in my stance, as we want to show you here. As Tommy gets further away from the golf ball, it looks like it moves up in his stance. It does not. 9-iron, and as he moves to his 5-iron, watch how that ball seems to move up in his stance. And then again with his driver. The ball position does not change. As you get further away from the ball, it looks like it's moving up in my stance. Watch how we go through this quickly, and watch how the ball looks like it's moved up. I do not want to have to play golf thinking about where the golf ball is in my stance. If you follow our procedure, from position 1 down into position number 2, club face first, then set your feet comfortable to the club face, you'll never have to worry about this problem again. Wrist conditions are, left wrist is bent, right wrist is flat, weight pressure is 55% on the left, 45% on the right. That's your setup. Position number 3, the takeaway. You've got to get this club started backwards. The left wrist takes a quarter of a roll backwards, toe of the club is straight in the air. This time through, I want you to watch that left forearm. It is yet to be moved backwards. Toe of the club in the air. From the back angle, take a look at the feet. Watch how quiet they are. The body is yet to be moved. We're trying to swing this golf club around a quiet body. From the top view, I start showing you what on plane means. Notice how the target line and the plane line are parallel. I'm going to show you how Tommy swings up. And the golf club is now on plane. The body is yet to be moved. It's a very quiet body that we're swinging the golf club around. Watch the left wrist. Starts the golf club. The forearm has not moved backwards. The wrist conditions are, right wrist is bent, left wrist is flat. This is the takeaway. Position number 4, the plane line. Through this whole sequence, what I'd really like you to notice is how quiet everything stays. For years we've been hearing about cocking the wrists. I want you to watch. There is no cocking going on here. If you feel yourself cocking your wrist, then you're doing more than you need to do. From this point on, there's only a lifting of the right arm. The right arm lifts the golf club into position number 4. From the top angle, I'm going to show you what on plane means in position 4. Notice how the plane line intersects the target line. At this point in time, the butt end of the golf club should be pointing right at the golf ball. When you're doing this, check to make sure that it's correct. It is just a lifting of the right arm to position number 4. Wrist conditions are right wrist is bent, left wrist is flat. Just lift the right arm, body remains quiet. That's position number 4, the plane line. Position number 5, the uppermost position, is this time from position 4, I'm trying to take my right arm and lift my left hand straight up that dotted line right to the X. I want you to watch how I'm pick my right arm up, which pulls my left arm up, but watch how I can't get to that X. But the feeling should be that my hands are always trying to stretch back away from me. Notice how I get to the yellow X? I wanted to get to the white. I can't do it, but the feeling I get is I'm stretching my arms away from me, not around me. All I'm doing is taking my right arm and picking my left arm up. The wrist conditions at this time are the right wrist is bent, the left wrist is flat. Right arm straight up. From the top view, we'll show you what on plane in position 5 should look like. The club shaft and hands are on the plane line, parallel to the target line. That's position number 5, the uppermost position. Position number 6, the vertical drop. In 5, we got to get working our way downwards. How do we do this? It's called a vertical drop. Yes, I'm dropping the golf club into position. I am not pulling it down, I'm dropping it. Golf club falls into position. This gives me my inside swing path. From the back view, watch the right elbow as it falls into the right hip. The body again at this point is moving very little. The right elbow drops in to the right hip. The wrist condition should be right wrist bent, left wrist flat. This is how I practice. This is not how I play. This is how I practice. We're getting ready for the golf course. Watch the hands fall down the black line. Vertical drop, position number 6. On our way into number 7. Position number 7, the impact position. From number 6, we're now going to swivel into number 7, the most crucial point of the golf swing. Here what we've done to help you out is drawn some lines to show you exactly what's happening at this time. The angle of attack shows a downwards attack onto the golf ball. The lowest point is opposite my left shoulder joint. The divot is the gray area. I want to show you that the club is traveling down when it hits the golf ball. Notice here that the golf club contacted the ball at the impact point, made the divot through the low point. Conclusive evidence that the golf club is traveling down when it hits the golf ball. The ball will not go in the air unless it is struck downwards. Once again, we want to show you how, with both feet on the ground, my hands and arms and club head swivel into the golf ball. Both feet still on the ground. The weight pressure should be 40% on the right, 60% on the left, back foot still on the ground. From position 6, it allows me to swivel into 7, which is my inside swing path. From 6, the vertical drop to 7 creates the inside swing path. Close up the hands shows that at this time the wrist conditions are the right wrist is bent, the left wrist is flat. This is position number 7, the impact position. Position number 8, the true club shaft path. This is the one that's killing us. The most misunderstood part of the whole golf swing is right here. Check that right wrist. It does not flatten out. The camera angle makes it look like it does, and all still pictures make it look like it is. But it is not. As we're going to see from the front angle, I want you to take a real good look at that right wrist. The right wrist remains bent, and the arms travel up. And again, the right wrist will remain bent through the golf ball. They rotate and the arms travel up. From the top view, I want to show it on plane in position 8 looks like. Watch Tommy's hands, how they go right on the plane line. Plane line again is parallel to the target line, and the hands stay right on plane. From here, we're going to rotate into a close-up of the hands. They rotate, and the arms will travel up. Left wrist is flat, right wrist is bent. Watch this right foot this time. It is still on the ground. Hands swivel into position 8, the true club shaft path. Position number 9, the finish position. At this point here, the hands are traveling straight up. We've created enough momentum that the club head is pulling the body through the golf ball. But your arms and hands are traveling straight up, not around your body, straight up. Your checkpoint is the bottom of your arm should be parallel to the ground. From the front view, you notice that the hands are traveling straight up, which is pulling the body around. The hands travel straight up, the body gets pulled through the golf ball. A close-up of the hands will reveal that the left wrist is flat, the right wrist is bent. From position 3 all the way through to 9, the right wrist remains bent. The forearms roll, but the wrist remains bent. On plane in position 9 looks like this. The hands will travel straight up that black line. They do not go around the body, they go straight up. From 8, the arms go up, the body gets pulled through. Everything you own should be facing where you want the ball to go. Position number 10, the checkpoint. All things need a checkpoint, including my golf swing. This gives me a chance to check out my weight pressure. 90% on the left foot, 10% on the right foot. Now let's check our balance. At this point, everything you own should be facing where you want the golf ball to go. One more time up. Take the time and check. I want to know what I did right so I can do it again. Now close up of the hands gives me my wrist conditions. Right wrist is bent, left wrist is flat. Now let's recap what we've done. We have shown you the positions you're going to need to know to perfect your golf swing. Let's watch one more time as Tommy goes through his positions. The setup. Moving into position number 3, the takeaway. At this point, I want to mention to you that when I practice mechanics. I practice mechanics so that I can play by feel. The only way I know how to create the same feel each and every time is through mechanics. By doing this, every swing is exactly the same. When I go to the golf course, I just let it go, with full confidence that by my mechanical practice, the correct feel will take place each time. Tommy's right into position 9. These are the positions you're going to need to know to learn your golf swing.
In segment number 3, Mark and Tommy will show you what it takes to build your golf swing.
In segment number 3, we're going to discuss the theories that help make Moe Norman the greatest ball striker of all time. With the help of Tommy Jackson, tour professional, we're going to show you how to build a golf swing. Hi Tommy, how you doing?
Mark, how are you today?
I'm doing good. I think we've got to show the people how we go about building the golf swing. The way I'd like to do it is, while we're showing them the correct way, maybe we can discuss some of the old thinking and what wrong is at the same time.
Well, I think we've had together had a lot of that old theories.
Well, let's see if we can get rid of some of those things.
Okay.
Okay, what I'm going to ask you to do first is take your setup, start position number 1. I want to show people how to create the same correct habits day in and day out. Position number 1, taking your grip, getting your hands on the golf club correctly. Now we're going to be able to move into the golf ball now, and the first thing you've got to do is aim your club face. Feet fairly close together, aim the club face. Now take your stance. The stance should be feet parallel to the target line. Feet, knees, hips, and shoulders all in a parallel line to your target line, not to your target. Maybe Tommy can get you to move around. I know that the books I read or have read have never stated that your feet, knees, hips, and shoulders should aim at the target. But as many lessons as I give, and as you give, people are always trying to aim their shoulders and their knees and their hips at the target. I've never read a book that said that. So maybe if we can get the camera to move around the back of you, you notice that I always use a straight line when we practice. Without that straight line, you're never sure of what your alignments are. Okay, Tommy, let's show them the correct way.
Okay.
Position 1, getting your hands correctly on the golf club. Okay, we have the club face behind the ball, aimed at the target. Set our feet comfortable to our club face. Okay, Tommy, let's go about doing that again, and we'll kind of run you through the wrong way.
Okay.
Okay, how about you discuss what the wrong way has been?
Well, I think always people have worked at never setting up, as we talked about, the club face to the target. The club face has to hit the ball, so it has to be aligned where you want the ball to end up. The majority of people have always lined up the body, and then they've worked the club face into whatever they set up for the body, which I believe isn't the correct method. If you work off the club face, you'll always be correct. And the other thing, I think people don't have anything to line their body at. They have to work off the club face. There can't be that imaginary pin down there 3 feet left of the hole that they line their body up on. They have to line up the club face and believe that that's correct.
Now this is with your feet, knees, and hips, shoulders all pointing at the target.
Yeah, as you know, I didn't put the club down first. I just set my body into the ball, got my body aimed up, and then I worked the club face down to fit my body instead of my body fitting the club face where it was aimed.
And as we can see, with the help of our straight line, it's very obvious that you're swinging across the lines.
Right.
Where we want to swing through lines on parallel lines.
Exactly.
Okay, how about we go real quick? We'll do correct and incorrect one more time. How about starting with incorrect?
Incorrect.
Okay, back to correct. Now everything's online, makes it easy to swing the golf club. Go ahead and swing it. Good shot.
Yeah.
That's our setup. Make it a habit. If you make it a habit, it becomes natural. If it's natural, you don't have to think about it. It's exactly what we want. Okay, let's move on and show you how we're going to build our golf swing. Okay, Tommy, how about from position number 2, the setup? How about you start with the old way of what we thought was correct about taking the golf club back. Going straight back. Okay, now what we've done is from this position, we've now worked on taking the left wrist and turning the left hand a quarter of a turn. Now what this does, and what you'll be able to see, is this brings the golf club back up and in instantly and simultaneously. Okay, start again, Tommy. The old way was taking it back. The new way is taking the left wrist and making it turn 1/4 of a rotation backwards. Okay, do that again. This time, if I can get the camera to move around to in front of Tommy. Now with the camera in front of us, we want to take a look at the left wrist. We set the left wrist. It takes a quarter of a turn to the right. But at the same time, the left arm has not moved backwards yet. This is going to help us retain our center, which is ever so important if you're trying to get the club face back to the square position at impact. One more time, Tommy. Setting the left wrist first. It takes a quarter of a turn. Wrist conditions are left wrist is flat, right wrist is bent. That's how we initiate the backswing. Now we're going to work on taking the golf club a little further up. Okay, Tommy, left wrist. Now at the same time, we're going to work on taking the golf club a little higher up. But what we want to think about here is keeping the left knee in the same position as it started in. How about what the old way was, Tommy? Moving the knee backwards. Okay, that really is something that moves us off center. New way is keeping the left knee in the same position it started in at the address position. Now what I want people to do is learn to take the golf club up faster, but how we do this is taking the right hand and extending it away from you. Okay, we'll start again. With the right arm. See, there's this confusion. Is it my left arm that does it? Is it my right arm that does it? What we want to do is get rid of the confusion. Make it a right-sided motion, and then there won't be a fight between the left side and right side. So we're going to take it back about waist high, Tommy, just taking your right hand and trying to extend it away from you. Now from this angle, what I want you to notice at the waist-high position of our backswing, we have the butt end of the golf club pointing right at the golf ball. This means you are on plane. If we've taken the golf club from our first step, which is position number 3, to position number 4, you notice that the butt end is facing the golf ball at this time. You are on plane if you're in this position. The left knee has not moved yet. From position 3, we're going to extend our right hand up and back, but at the same time keeping the left knee where it started. This puts the golf club right on plane. Tommy, you want to explain what would happen the old way?
In the old way, when that knee buckled in like this, which caused the right hip to turn away from you, it brought the club inside.
And you can see
how
how
where the point of the butt is pointing way off plane. Okay, and from behind, you'll see as soon as that left knee buckles in and causes the right hip to turn away, how the club works inside and the butt is pointing outside the plane line.
Okay, the proper way?
Proper way, the right, bringing it up, right into position, right on plane.
That's position number 4 now. From position number 4, the plane line position, we now move to the uppermost position, position number 5. From number 4, the plane line position, all we have to do is take the right hand and get it as far away from the eyes as we possibly can. So the arms move up, getting the hands as far away from the eyes as we possibly can. Now I want you to take a look at a very unique part of this swing, is what the shoulders are doing here. If Tommy will take his hand, his right hand, and move it as far away from his eyes as he possibly can, watch what happens to the shoulders. You see how the shoulders got turned? We didn't turn the shoulders got turned. Well, what I'd like to recap for a second for the people is that by you taking your hands and putting them in position number 5, and at the same time keeping your left leg where it started, the shoulders get turned, the hip gets turned, very little, but it gets turned, the left knee is in a proper position. All you have to do is visualize that you take the golf club, if you would please, from position number 2, the setup position, put it in position number 5, everything got turned and you didn't have to think about it. That's what we want. We want to be able to get to the top of our swings without having to think. So if you picture number 5 and you go back and it's left wrist, right hand, that's all you've got to think about to get to the top of your swing. Now we're at the top, we've got to work our way down. Tommy, if we get you to start at position 5, the uppermost position, I'm going to say the new way, and then maybe you can relate some of the old ways we thought about it. With very little hip turn, because that's what we want. We are now finding that the bigger the differential between how much shoulders get turned and how much the hip gets turned, the further we can hit it. From the top of the swing, I call it a vertical drop, where the golf club drops down before the hips start rotating. That's what's so hard about this. It's hard to wait. From the top, the first motion is the hands drop, then we rotate. If you notice again, we're all looking to create an inside swing path. To do that, the club drops, and that creates the inside swing path. Okay, Tommy, how about you discuss the old ways of what we thought the golf club started its way down?
Okay, I think there was some misconception of what dropping the club was. A lot of people thought that you created lag by having the club go like this with the wrist. So they would sit there and they would drop it like that, and all that did was create a casting motion on the downswing. And as you can see, from this angle, you'll be able to see the old way people thought they created lag. They got it up, they cocked the wrist, and they broke the left arm. It settled the club back down here. This was the impression of what lag was. That is not correct, as we know now. Correct lag is a drop into the right side.
We've dropped it into position 6. Now we have to get into the most important position in the whole swing, impact. Let's show you how we do that. You notice that Tommy has dropped it into 6. Left wrist is flat, right wrist is bent. The hips have moved very, very little. His right elbow is inside his right hip before we move into position 7, impact. All we're going to do here is swivel into impact, and you'll notice how the right wrist is still bent, the left wrist is still flat, and most importantly, the club face is square to the golf ball. Tommy, can you do that again for us, please, one more time? From 6, the right elbow is inside the right hip. We swivel into position 7, impact. Left wrist is flat, right wrist is bent. Club face is pointed where we want the golf ball to go. Now we've got into position 7, which is our impact positions. We now need to talk a little bit about old and new. The new way is that I'm saying inside out never happens. We swing the golf club from inside to inside. By maintaining your right wrist bend, it allows us to go from inside to inside. I'm going to let Tommy talk to you a little bit about what we used to believe.
Yeah, I think some of the drills we were given, we would think inside out to right field, we were told. Let the hand release square down the line. I think there's a lot of misconceptions that we've cleared up when we now know that it comes inside. Inside here, inside here.
From close up and with the help of a golf club for a straight line, we're going to show you the 2 swing paths. First, inside, back to the golf ball, then inside. This is going to produce a golf ball that starts to the right and comes to the left. Now let's show you inside, out. Golf club goes back, comes into the golf ball from the inside, then goes outside. That's going to produce a shot that goes to the right and stays there. From position number 7, and with the use of the inside to inside swing path, it makes it quite simple to get to position number 8. Position number 8, right wrist is bent, left wrist is flat. If we can get the camera to move around for us, we're going to show you something that's very important to you. What we want you to notice here is the right foot. Look how long Tommy keeps that right foot on the ground through 7 on his way to 8. That's going to allow you to create the correct sequence of events. Right wrist is bent, left wrist is flat, back foot is still on the ground, and we've maintained our axis tilt. There's position number 8, on our way to our true finish position. Now we've reached position number 8, we're going to now go to our true finish position. All we need to do now is raise the hands up, which brings the back side up, including the right foot being 90 degrees to the target. Perfect balance, arms 90 degrees to the ground. If we can get the camera to move around, we're now going to show you that we have maintained our wrist angles. Our true finish position. Right wrist is still bent, left wrist is still flat, arms are parallel to the ground. Everything Tommy has is facing where he wants the golf ball to go. Back foot is 90 degrees to the target line. But before we finish this, I want to go from 8 up to 9, the finish position one more time. Check to make sure that you maintain your axis tilt. In the past, we have been led to believe that the shoulders end up level, and we now know they do not. So Tommy, what I'm going to do is ask you to go from 8 to 9 correctly and then incorrectly.
This is correctly. This is incorrectly.
From position number 9, your finished position, you can now watch the golf ball go and then recess into position 10, and this is your chance to take a look to see how you did. Right wrist bent, left wrist is flat. If you recess into this position, you're guaranteed that you've hit somewhat of a good shot.
Segment number 4. Mark talks about the 5 drills necessary for a consistent golf swing.
This segment is the practice drills you're going to need to maintain your golf swing.
Drill number 1, putting the hold together with a setup. Making sure we get our hands on the golf club correctly. Going down to position number 2, the setup. Club face first, feet comfortable to the club face. You can never practice this drill too many times. All great shots start from a great setup. During all practice sessions, make sure that part of your time is spent learning to set up correctly to the golf ball. Club face, feet, you're ready to go. Drill number 1. Drill number 2. Let's start building our swing from the short swings up to the long swings. What we suggest is you go to your driving range, buy a bucket of golf balls, and go directly to your short game area. What we're working on is the impact area of the golf swing. Every swing you're going to ever take goes through this position here.